Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Employee to Boss podcast. I am your host, Haley Hayhurst. Today, my guest is Hunter Lowder. She is the co-owner of the Tortoise and the Bear, a business strategy and operation and mindset coaching company that supports visionaries in bringing their wild and crazy dreams to life. Hunter helps service-based business owners create and prioritize a strategic plan to grow their impact and move their business forward in a sustainable way. I connected with Hunter on Instagram through one of our mutual connections, and what really stood out to me about Hunter is she helps creative people so much, but she says she herself is more of like a technical person. So although we think about entrepreneurs as like creative individuals, and we all are to some extent, Hunter loves the technical side. So if you are wanting to start a business, but you don't think of yourself as a creative, this is going to be a really good episode for you to listen to. Another reason that Hunter really stood out to me is because she incorporates a lot of, the woo-woo side of business to her coaching. And so, as you know by listening to this podcast, I love astrology and human design and Enneagram tests and all of these things that really teach us about our personalities and how we work best. Hunter's also really into those. And so when she starts working with a new client, she wants to know all about them and their personality type and all of these things, which we talk about. And so I think it's really a unique twist on coaching to make it way more personalized from her side. And so this is a really great episode about, business strategy and building out your coaching program and like moving your business forward. So I absolutely love this conversation with Hunter, and I can't wait for you to listen to it. So let's get right in. Hi, Hunter. Thank you so much for joining me on the Employee to Boss podcast. It's so good to see you again.
It's lovely to see you too, Haley. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. I love your business structure, and I know we talked about starting you a podcast, and one of the things that we talked about, which I loved, was a lot of people come to me for help with the tech side, not the creative side, but you kind of were like, I love that tech stuff. And so I'm excited to hear all about you and your business today. If you wanted to start off by introducing yourself and telling us what you do.
Absolutely. So as you said, my name's Hunter and my company is called Tortoise and the Bear, which makes absolutely no sense as a business operations company, but it's just delightful to me. My spirit animal is a tortoise and my husband's is a bear. So we were like, oh, kind of like a mom and pop business shop name, combine the two together. And then hopefully people remember it a lot better that way too. We essentially are a business strategy and a mindset coaching company that helps entrepreneurs, especially people that are corporate expats and pandemic pivoters who have had a successful business, but they've like plateaued. And so we help them get to the next level, whether that's 6-7 figures, growing or scaling, using a personality-based sales and visibility strategy.
I love that. So that's really cool that you're helping people who are just starting their business or have been doing it since the pandemic. How did you actually start your business?
So I think I have been on this journey of figuring out who I wanted to work with and how I wanted to help them. My original career was actually in the hospitality industry. So I used to run a wedding and event venue, winery, hotel, restaurant up in Central California for over a decade. I started off as the event manager and worked my way up to the CEO of the company, which is like a multi-7-figure company. And then I promptly crashed and burned, had a really severe burnout, and was basically like, okay, what am I going to do with my life now? Like I was following this path. I'm like a super type A overachiever, like go, go, go type of person. And then all of a sudden that success, that personality, that driven nature actually kind of hurt me. And so I didn't have to, but I decided to really kind of look at who I am, who do I want to be, look at all the beliefs that I was taught, all the stories I was told, and like, what do I really want my life to look like? So I got a lot of coaching certifications because at first I was like, I want to be a coach and I want to help women like me avoid burnout, hopefully, and at the very least heal from burnout if they were already at that point. But when I got into coaching, I was like, I'm way too opinionated to be a coach. Coaches are like, what's the question inside of you? Find your own answer. And I love being coached personally, but I'm more of a consultant where I'm like, do these 3 things and then you'll be successful. So I actually ended up online and following a woman who I took a certification course with, who was a coach, and she was looking for an executive operations assistant. So I read the job description and I was like, well, I could do this with my eyes closed because I used to run a multi-seven-figure company, and this is just like an online company. And so I decided it was a good opportunity for me to like jump in, put my toes in the water, and get back into the working world. I'm still with them 2.5 years later as their operations manager, and I have other retainer clients. And then just this year, I decided to put out a like one-to-one offer for people that so that they can work with me outside of a retainer commitment.
That's awesome. I love that. And I think retaining those clients for so long is just like a testimony to the work that you're doing. Some of my clients I've also had since I started my business, and it just makes me so happy to grow with
So,
them. So I love that. And you also drive a lot of like personality quizzes and human design and really understanding your clients into what you're doing for them. And I think that's really different than what some other people are doing, especially for, business operations and things like that. What made you decide that you wanted to include these personality based operations into your business?
yeah, so a lot of it was you asked the question earlier about, tech versus creative and how most people come to you with the tech side of things, and I'm coming to you with the creative side of things. And I think a big part of it is I'm kind of outside the box. Like I'm not the typical person. I think the online world is very much geared towards creatives, and you're so creative and you just need structure. And what about all of us people out there who are super structured, but the creativity is not there, So it's like I have ideas, I have these thoughts, I have things I want to do, but I don't have that creativity element to my business, which is why great people like you, and I think Diane Shelton connected us, like great people like her who are creative and can add that creativity element to people that are more structured. So part of it was like my own story of just like, where can I find this creative better half who can help me when I know all the tech, I know all the operations, I know all the systems. There are obviously a lot of operators out there. There's tons of OBMs, there's tons of directors of operations, COOs, project managers, and those people need creative people. That's like their better half, is that creativity side, but it doesn't get, I think, talked about as much because obviously it's creative. So the creative people are talking because they're posting online, they're making captions and graphics, and they're kind of a little bit louder, like in the online space. So for me, when I left my career, I literally had this moment where I was like, I don't know who I am outside of my career. Like I lost my identity. I was like, who I thought I was so like integrally tied to what I did that I almost was like, okay, I need to reinvent the wheel now and really figure out who I am. And like I said, and who I want to be. Because I don't think that personality tests are like a prescription. It's not like, oh, this is who you are in a story. Like that's it. It's like, here's your tendencies, here's your strengths, here's your weaknesses. How can we make things work a little bit better for you? So my big focus was I dove into astrology, human design, strength finder, Colby-A, Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, etc., just to figure out like who I was and how I worked and what would be an ideal life for me, an ideal career for me. I'm a big fan of playing to your strengths. So let's not look at weaknesses. Let's not look at what is hard for you. Let's look at what you're good at, and let's really try and like amplify that.
I love that. And that's actually something I really haven't thought of before. Like when I got into entrepreneurship, I was like, oh, I'm, creative. Entrepreneurship is for me. But that's really interesting that like some people are more like not creative, but more on like the structured side, like you're talking about. For anyone listening who might be in your, shoes, but like haven't started yet, what would you recommend to them? Because I feel like it could be really intimidating to actually take that step to starting a business, knowing that you have all of those creative things in, your near future path.
Yeah, so I like to call myself this. Hopefully it'll be like my official name in the future, but like the queen of shortcuts or like the queen of hacks. Like I'm like, is there an easy button for that? And usually there is. Usually there's like some way to make this thing possible. It's just like the way you were trying to do it was hard and sticky and like frustrating. Don't do it that way. And so that's why I use the personality test, because it's like there's no cookie cutter solution. There's no like pick one platform and go live every day, or pick one niche and blah, 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 blah. It's like, who are you? What are your goals? And how do we use your strengths, which essentially the personality assessments is a way for me to get to know them really fast, as opposed to, over several years. How do we play to your strengths to build you a business that is part of your values, part of who you are, and is your identity, not in the sense like it was mine, where you're like, ah, that's all you are, but it really complements you and your life. Because what we mostly have are lifestyle businesses.
Yeah, that's really true. So when you look at those for your clients who come to you and they're like, I know for me, like personally, I'm a type 3 Enneagram. I just learned this like 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Still don't know what it means. But if I was to come to you and be like, I'm a Taurus, a type 3 Enneagram, and manifesting generator.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know what to do with all these, but how do you like interpret that and really tie that into how business works for this specific person?
Sure. So I really start with them typically with what a customer journey audit. So I kind of look at all their personality assessments, the ones they want to take. They don't have to take them all by any means. What do they offer their clients? Who's their ideal client? What is their price point? What does their onboarding, offboarding process look like? I go to their website, their social media, and I just kind of like absorb like the big picture. So for me, I'm really looking at the big picture, like the holistic kind of sales and marketing ecosystem, which I love that word, where it's not like this, like little boxes, like everything plays together. And the more you can play together, I think the less time it takes, less frustration, and the faster you can grow, really. So Enneagram 3, I'm pretty sure, is the achiever. It is the person that is very achievement oriented. They are all about checking stuff off the list, getting the accolade, getting the award, getting the certificate. Like they're very accomplishment driven. So for someone like that, you want to set really specific, like short-term goals. So it's not like 5 years from now, I want to blah, 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 because you're going to lose the motivation. You need to take that 5 years from now, and this is what I do with a lot of my clients, and reverse engineer it to this year, this quarter, this month, this week, this day. So Monday through Friday, I'm going to do these things. I'm going to check them off my list, and then I know I'm moving towards my big goal. And so that's going to keep an achievement oriented person really like focused and excited. Taurus are incredibly elegant and sensual. They love touch, smell, taste, like the finer things in life. So it's kind of like when you work, how are you incorporating that into your work? Is your website look like that? Does your Instagram look like that? Is it like textures and richness and blah, blah, blah? Or are you kind of playing the way everyone else told you to play, which is, robbing people of you? So it's really like about infusing your personality. And obviously with these online businesses as entrepreneurs, I think people are hiring people. They're not hiring a podcast manager.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right. They're hiring Haley and her unique experience and her unique story and her personality. And we matched and we meshed and we got along. We had great rapport. So I think really infusing more of that personality is a big part for me.
I love that. And you learned all of this from trying to find yourself, and now you have this business all around it, which is just incredible. I want to talk about, at what point does a business owner hire you? Like, where are they at in their business that they're like, I need to figure out who I am. How do I run this business successfully? And truly, like, how do I make it last long term?
Absolutely. So for most people I work with, like I said, a lot of corporate expats or people that pivoted during the pandemic. So they're typically very business savvy. They are good at what they do. They're experts at what they do. And whether they became a coach or a consultant or decided to do like an online program or course, or if there's something like a copywriter or a website designer, whatever it might be, service provider, it's like they're good at what they do. They're passionate, they're excited, they're driven, they're hard workers, and they are really successful. It's like they almost like kind of accidentally start their business, probably they accidentally got a client, or they just like put something out there. And then all of a sudden they're like, whoa, off to the races. And they're doing really well, almost like it's like a mystery to them why they're doing so well. And then they hit a plateau. And then either clients are inconsistent, like sales calls aren't booking, people aren't following up, people are ghosting, whatever it might be. It's just kind of like, oh, what, like it just fell off. What happened? So usually that plateau is when they hire me, because it's a little bit after the plateau, because when they get to the plateau, they just try everything. They try, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take this course. I'm going to hire this expert. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to hire a VA. I'm going to invest in this software. And they're just like throwing money and time and energy at the problem, and it's not getting solved. And basically they're at a point where they're like, either I need to go back to corporate to make money for myself and my family, or like I need to grow this business. And so they're kind of at that like point of business where they need an expert to come in who understands business, who understands online business, who can understand their unique personality and business goals, and kind of give them that outside perspective so they can have actionable steps to move forward.
Oh my gosh. Everything you're saying right now just makes so much sense to me because like when I started, I just was like, "Oh, I'm going to start a business."
Yeah,
I went
absolutely.
to school for journalism. Like I had
Yep.
no business background. And so that's awesome. How are you finding your clients? Because I think it can be hard for people to admit that they need help, especially as entrepreneurs who are so, like, I got this. How are you connecting with them and kind of like, what are the main pain points that you are, dissecting with them through the onboarding connect call process?
Yeah. So my personality is I'm very much like a connector type person. And I was in the online space for probably 6 months with clients, retainers, like getting to know people, various Facebook groups, even some networking events, going on summits, not talking on summits, but watching them and everything else, enrolling in them. And then all of a sudden it's like the online world just like converges. And you're like, wow, I know everybody and everybody knows me and everybody knows these people that I know. And it's just all of a sudden amazing how small the internet can be. Like when you're, in podcasting, like how many podcast people do you know, host, managers, launchers, etc. And all of a sudden the world is not that large anymore. So for me, I'm a big like connector, networker, like who do I know that you know and who do you know that I know? But I think there's just so many options how to get clients, which again is why we do the personality based. Because, for example, if someone's like introverted, I'm not going to recommend that they do an incredibly extroverted lead gen, like going live every week or joining a networking organization. Like they'd probably be better off doing something like Pinterest, possibly even LinkedIn. So it's like really looking at those different traits because I think there's a million different ways you can get clients. But if it feels gross or hard or icky, you're not even going to try, and then your business is going to suffer.
Yeah, yeah. And looking at your Instagram too, you share so many amazing quotes, tips, things like that. And one of the ones that I saw earlier was it's time to try it your way. Do
Mm-hmm.
you ever find that when people come to you and you say to them, like, you don't have to go live on Instagram every week, they're kind of like, what are you talking about? Like, that's
Right.
what I've been
Yeah.
told this whole journey. Like, what?
Right.
Like, have you experienced that?
Yeah, so I always joke, I consider myself like a very rebellious, kind of revolutionary, like outside the box person. And part of my healing from burnout has really been that there are no rules. Like we're born, there's no rules. Someone tells us the rule and we're like, okay. And then we just accept that as true, but it's not. And you can at any point start believing something. You can also at any point stop believing something. So I had one client that I was working with, and she's an extrovert. So she's like an ENFP, I think, on Myers-Briggs. And so she's extroverted. She loves people, loves chatting with them. The danger with extroverts is that they get their energy from other people. So they can overload their calendar and burn out, or they can overload their calendar with things that actually aren't producing revenue or moving their business forward just because they love chatting with people. So they get on those calls where they're like, why did I just have that for 30 minutes? Like that was pointless. So I said to her, you're extroverted, you love this. This is a really important part of your business, these coffee chats, networking. So why don't you just slim it down to like every Thursday from noon to 3 p.m. is when you do coffee chats. And her response was, I'm allowed to do that? Yes, you're allowed to do that. It's your business. She's like, are you giving me permission to do that? I'm like, you're giving yourself permission to do that. And I do it all the time. We do it all the time. It's amazing. Like these things that we're like, you have to do this or your business will fail is not really true.
Yeah, that's really powerful. And with the new year, everyone is kind of evaluating their business, like year-end reviews of like, what did I accomplish this year? What did I do right? What do I want to continue? And I know you through this want to help people like love everything they're doing in business. So if you could say anything to business owners right now of 2023, what advice would you share with them?
Oh, I mean, several things come to mind. One of which is like this idea of ROI. It's like return on investment. And I think people just immediately look at a financial ROI. Okay, if I hire this person, am I going to make back my investment in that person? And I think that's a really short-sighted decision. Now, if you can't pay bills, if you're having financial struggles, totally get that. No judgment there, but probably shouldn't be thinking about hiring anybody in that situation anyway. So we're talking about like, hey, I want to invest in my business. I want to grow my business. I have this much of capital to be able to grow my business. And then they're like, well, if I spend this much with you. When am I getting that money back? And money is absolutely important. And as an entrepreneur moving into that CEO role, which is kind of when they find me, it's not about just money. Sometimes return on investment can be return on peace of mind, like return on your time back. So now if I free up 2 hours of your week, how much is that worth? Whether financially, because now you can do more sales calls, or whether just, spiritually, emotionally, just your lifestyle, because now you could go to the spa or see your kid's soccer game or take a nap. So I think the short-sightedness of this very capitalist culture that we live in, which of course is important. We all need to make money to live, but it's like that's not the only thing that is going to make your business sustainable or make you enjoy your business. So I think just thinking outside the box a little bit. And then a lot of times people can find ways to afford vendors in that sense too. So it's like, oh, well, what can I do to save money here or make more money by bringing this expert in to give me an outside perspective so that I can continue to grow?
Yeah, I really like that because I mean, everyone talks about like making these 7 figures, making these 6 figures, and it's like, do you really need that? I am a single woman. I live in an expensive city, but like, like, I don't know if I need to make 7 figures. Like, that's a lot of work. And so that's kind of how I've been thinking about things recently. And that seems like that's the story that you tell your clients too. Like, what do you actually need and how are you going to get there?
And why do you want it? I think if you don't
Yeah.
have that drive, the why is so important. The why is like your vision in corporate speak. And it's like if you don't have that why, you're just like, oh, well, everyone says 10K months. Everyone says 6, 7 figures. Everyone says, well, it's like, well, that's great. And why do you want that? Like, what is the purpose behind that? So one of my clients who are actually 7-figure clients and they want to scale to multi 7 figure, I said that to them. I said, now, you guys want to scale to multi 7 figure? We absolutely can, but you're going to go from being an entrepreneurs to like CEOs, leaders, managers. You're less doing and more managing, and
Mhm.
you're going to need to build a pretty robust operations team, marketing team, and fulfillment team. So, and I said, and you also have permission to not scale to multi 7 figures. So if that's not something you're just like super passionate about, let's not go through all the hassle of building that. Let's just stay where we are happy and comfortable in the system we have now. And so they thought about it for a while and said, no, we want to scale to multi 7 figures. I said, okay, great. So now you're committed to, put the infrastructure in place that's needed. So
Yeah.
again, it goes back to that rules. You don't have to make 10K months if you don't have to. You don't have to make 7 figures if you don't have to. If this allows you time to spend with your family and pay your bills, and you work part-time and you make 5 figures, good for you. That's
Mhm.
fantastic. Like we're all so different and we all try and be the same.
Yeah, I really like that because, you're not trying to talk your clients out of making multi 7 figures. You just are kind of playing that devil's advocate of like, think about it before you actually go on this journey. And I really like that.
Commit to it, do it
Yeah.
intentionally, really move forward with it and be excited about it because it's not easy. There's going to be ups and downs. And to get you through the downs, you really have to have that strong why. So otherwise you're just like, I quit.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
done with this, every week
Yeah.
pretty much.
I know. We all think that sometimes, like, why am I working so hard?
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
yeah, but
And then
really,
you
like,
gotta get to remind
stepping
yourself
back.
sometimes. And then sometimes
Yeah.
the why changes too. It's like, okay, I started this business, because we both started a business like about 2 years ago, right?
Mhm.
I started this business 2 years ago because of X. Does X still apply? If not, what is my new X? And then you got
Right.
to kind of keep, moving that ball forward.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So when clients come to you, I see that you kind of have this framework where step one is review and audit. Step two
Mhm.
is creating those growth goals.
Mhm.
Step three is the system plan. And then step four is implementing. What does step four really look like? Because you've talked us through, like how you understand your clients, how you set those goals, and then like step three and four, what does that actually look like?
Yeah, so this is where I took my own advice too, because I was driving myself crazy trying to do this like productized service, which I think is wonderful for so many people, where it's like, here's what I'm offering you, like Dubsado setup, or I'll set up your sales funnels, or I'll organize your Google Drive. Like that's things that are just like super repeatable. But I'm a Gemini and I'm also a manifesting generator. So like I literally get bored so quickly and so easily. Like I have to do things that are different and exciting and fun. So that's why I was okay, we're going to do it totally custom, personality based. So the answer to that is it can look different. It can look anything like, let's set up the SOPs and job description for you to hire your first VA, because that's the point of business that you're in. It could look like you don't have a lead magnet. So you're not building your email list, you're relying on social media, which, as we know, can be dangerous. So let's do your first lead magnet and get the email marketing set up and some emails going. So with the offer, a lot of it depends on the amount of time and complexity. Mostly I'm giving them like a strategy. So what I would say to that person is your next step is to develop a lead magnet and email marketing, but I'm going to be very specific about this email marketing system, this program, this blah, blah, blah. Now they can either go do it themselves, they can go have their VA do it, they can hire an expert, or they could hire me for implementation if they would like to, or even accountability just to make sure that they're doing it. So really what I'm giving them is kind of that high level strategy. And if it's big projects like that, it depends on the person and their budget. Like I don't want to say, oh, you have to go hire an expert. So sometimes it's do it yourself, sometimes it's hire an expert, sometimes it's take an online course. So that way they can really do it in their time frame and in their budget.
Totally. I love that so much. This is how I really start to close out all of my interviews of asking you, the guest, what you challenge the audience to start with today to actually move forward in their business. So, what would you like to challenge the audience to do?
Obviously, self-discovery and identity is a big thing for me. So I would say if you are at all wondering what you're good at, what you're uniquely talented for, and which can really help you on those days where it's rough. It's like, I'm a loser, like nothing's going right, I can't do anything. It's like, oh wait, here's this great list of things that I'm actually really good at. And let me stop trying to do the things that are really hard for me. So I would say dive into personality assessments, whether they are very scientifically based, like Myers-Briggs, Colby-A, Strength Finder, or whether they're a little bit more woo, like astrology and human design, and everything in between. Just learn about yourself, learn who you are, and not as a prescription, like I said, but really more like, okay, here's how things naturally work for me. And I kind of look at it as like a machine. It's like you're not going to use a tractor to do a road trip across the United States. You're going to use like a van. So it's like, how am I built, mentally, physically, emotionally, and how can I best utilize my strengths? And then one thing I'm really big about is values. So in business, especially, we build businesses a lot of times that aren't in line with our values. So let's say your value, one of my top values is to have fun, which when I first found that out, I was like, that's not a good value to have because nothing's fun all the time. And I think in the US, especially, it's not looked fondly upon to have fun. Like we're supposed to work and work hard and make money and then, retire and then blah. But then I realized like, no, I love having fun. If fun is part of it, I'm so much more inspired and motivated to do it. And so when I run into things that aren't fun, it's not that I don't do them, it's that I typically either figure out a way to make them fun, or if I'm able to, then I will outsource them. It's like usually the first thing I'll outsource is something like that. Mm-hmm. So I think figuring out our values, is your value communication? Is it integrity? Is it learning? What is your value in your life and your business? And make sure your business really reflects those values. And then I think the third thing I'm a big fan of, which is another corporate thing, is SMART goals. So there's like some controversy about whether SMART goals are good, SMART goals are bad. But I think when you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to set goals and reach them, as opposed to just like throwing spaghetti at the wall and did I make my goals this month? Or oops, didn't do that. Let me go back to the drawing board. It's like setting these goals that are SMART, which is specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-based. Then you can actually be like, celebrate yourself when you've accomplished them, as opposed to wondering how you accomplish them or wondering why you didn't accomplish them.
Yeah, I love SMART goals. Just before this interview, my client did a whole episode about SMART goals, so it's very top of mind for me right now. So I love those. Those are perfect for, I hope most people take time off around the holidays, and so that could be a good task, like take some personality tests, get to know yourself on your time off. Don't think about all the tasks that you have going on. Think about like who you are to the very core and how you're going to bring that into the new year.
My corny little expression to that is, we are human beings, not human doings. And we get so wrapped up in doing and accomplishing and achieving and leaving our mark on the world. It's like we forget to be. And I think those personality tests really bring us back into being. Like, who am I? Not what do I do? Who am I? And then how does that, kind of put a filter on all the aspects of my life?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been following a lot of Ram Dass. Have you heard of him?
No, I haven't.
Oh, he's like this philosopher who has a book called Be Here Now. I got it tattooed on my arm, actually.
Oh, I love it.
Send you because he is just very in the present and
Yes.
basically what you just said. So
Mhm.
I've really loved this conversation with you. For anyone who wants to work with you or just wants to connect with you, where's the best place to find you?
Absolutely. So I think Instagram is the best place to connect with me. I love chatting. One thing about manifesting generators is our strategy is to respond.
Mhm.
So we love chatting, love answering questions, love all that kind of stuff. So Tortoise and the Bear on Instagram. And then I do also have a free gift for any podcast listener that's on our website, which is tortoiseandthebear.com/podcast. And it's a free customer journey audit, like I mentioned earlier, which is basically like the first step in my big VIP day package.
Awesome. And then do you want to walk us through some of those offerings that you do have?
Yes. So essentially, like I mentioned, I have my retainer offers, and then I've got my only way to work with me outside of retainers is called Discover Your Path. And it's a one-to-one VIP day with some strategy sessions in there. And the sales page should be up in the next couple of days. I'm offering it as a beta at almost half off for 3 people before I officially launch it in February.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, I will put all of those in the show notes. Again, thank you so much. I have loved this conversation with you. I learned a lot.
Thank you for having me. It was really fun chatting about it.
Thank you for listening to the Employee to Boss podcast. If you made it to the end of this episode, I hope that you implement the actionable steps from this week's experts so you can get started with your business today. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the Employee to Boss podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. It helps more than you could ever imagine. Remember, a little progress each day leads to big results. We come out with a new episode every Tuesday. To access our show notes, transcripts, and courses, please check out espressopodcastproduction.com.